Heroes, short stories from the front line of long-term care. Today I'm joined by on the program with Mike Ciccarelli. Mike, did I get that right?
Yes, you did. Perfectly, actually.
And wonderful. I got 2 minutes of practice right before we joined in. And Mike is the Director of Admissions and Marketing at the Williamsport Home. Mark, tell me about how you got into long-term care. Can you take me back to the first day when you understood what long-term care meant, what was your introduction?
So the introduction is a pretty creative story. My father is a geriatrician and has been a medical director at some of the local nursing homes here in town. And I remember our Saturday bonding as a child, him bringing me on his rounding, at the local nursing homes. So I would say that would be really when I got my introduction to nursing homes. It's not a place that, small children would frequent, but, he would walk in with the 2-year-old in his backpack and then lugging the other 2 kids along. And we would sit at the nurse's station while he would round. So that was really the introduction, I would say. And then officially I got my start, back when I was at the young age of 25, I would say. I started working for a for-profit that was outside of town, really got some good experience there. And then the admissions job opened for the nursing home that my father was actually the medical director for at the time. So I thought that might be an interesting perspective to catch up with, his experience, to learn from all of that before he ends up, retiring at some point, because he's been, known to be one of the leading geriatricians in the area. So I've been very fortunate. It's been a very unique journey, but I just consider myself fortunate.
It is unique. I'm wondering, from that early stage of adolescence where you probably got a feel for what was special about the residents in the community, and 25 when you first professionally get a little bit of remuneration for your work. Did you think you were going to end up working in long-term care?
No, I had no idea. There were a few things that I found myself being different than most people when they would come into a nursing home. I remember at the young age of probably about 10, my father taking me into a nursing home and being at the nurse's station, and I remember a lady, a demented patient, grabbed onto my arm and wouldn't let go. And now looking back on it, I'm 36 today. Looking back on it, I probably think if my 9-year-old daughter was in that circumstance and has never been in a nursing home before, she would probably get really scared. But looking back on that now, it was almost the complete opposite. I think that was a product of just being in that environment so frequently, where I was comfortable with it. And that was back in a day where there wasn't so many regulations. There wasn't any COVID. There wasn't a pandemic where, limit visitors. And I just thought it was an experience that really shaped me. But I think it definitely played a valuable piece into how I approach my job every day now.
I know that there's a stereotype amongst the youth that, nursing homes are where you go to die, or they use words like institutions. I'm guessing in your family, you guys did not have that stereotype. What did your friends say to you? What did you say to your friends? Did your dad bring along some of your neighborhood friends once in a while and show them what's unique about it?
What's unique is Williamsport is a very small community. Everybody talks. It's a very close-knit environment to grow up in. So I didn't have a lot of feedback from friends, because what ended up happening is at one point or another, a loved one would need medical care. And at some point, the recommendation might be made to go and seek out Dr. Ciccarelli, look for his services. So it was almost full circle. And my father always had a reputation in town here that this was his life's work. His life's work was to be a doctor, was to be a geriatrician. So, a friend, you might have a friend say, I really don't understand that lifestyle, how, sitting around the dinner table growing up, with my father being a doctor and my mother being a nurse, you would talk about not so normal dinner conversation. So if you have a friend over for that, it might come across as a little out of the norm.
Hmm.
I know, especially, for even our closest of family members, my wife and my sibling spouses, when they would come over, it would be a little probably alarming. But you come to understand that that's kind of the product of the life that you grew up in.
Mike, I'm and I know you're still quite young, and you could have two or three more professional shifts or changes in your life. I know I've had two
Yeah,
since I was 36. But is there
sure.
a specific moment, between the age of 25 and 26 where you said, "Man, I'm really happy here. I'm gonna spend 5 to 10 years." Now you're going on 11. Where you said, I really like this. There's a memory that comes up in your mind when I ask you that question.
Um, I think I've always been drawn to the passion of connection with people, and it's very easy to find that connection when you're working with the geriatric population. There's so much rich history in what they have to offer every day. So the defining moment for me, I would say, where this is something incredible that happened at work. And then I love the work that I do. I was working late. It was a Friday night. I was leaving about 8 o'clock, and I had a resident in the lobby, and she took my hand and she said, "Mike, I have something for you." And at 8 o'clock on a Friday night, your mind is trying to get home to your family. And I took some time. I was patient, and she said, I'm a collector of things. I've collected things my entire life, and I have something of special importance to you." And she reached for my hand, and she placed a voucher for a free shoe shine at my great grandfather's pool hall that he built when he was in town here in Williamsport. And the family has a pool table of his back then, and it's a voucher for a free shoe shine at his pool hall, and it has his initials on it. And I said,
Handwritten.
handwritten by him. And I said to myself, where did you find this? And I think it's that human connection and that spontaneity that you get every day by, coming to work and even if you just take 5 minutes to talk to somebody, you're going to find some rich history in everything that they have to say.
I hope you didn't cash in that shoe shine. You got that somewhere, right?
Yeah, I held on to that. I'm saving that for a rainy day.
That is a beautiful story. Thank you for sharing that. If like a lot of times, I started out of college working in social work, been a teacher. Both of those are specific jobs where people get burnout pretty quickly. 3 to 5 years, 5 years on the long side. Same thing in long-term care. What is it that makes you get out of bed every single day and go to work, hopefully happily, eagerly? What is it a part of your day that you're like, this is my favorite part of the day?
I started in drug substance abuse rehab. I started on the insurance end of things, and a lot of times when I would go to work there, you were helping people, but a lot of times that appreciation at the end of the day wasn't there. And I think I've narrowed it down to a lot of the geriatric population. They are living every day happily that they just have another day to live. And there's just a sense of appreciation behind that. And when you do something for them or you go out of your way, you can see that really impacts them in that moment. And it's almost like an encouragement to live mindfully, to be in the present, to enjoy that. And I did live that life of 2 or 3 years where I was just kind of spinning in a career that I wasn't extremely happy in. But I'm glad to say at this point in my life, I'm extremely just grateful to be in this career.
Thank you for sharing that. And I saw on your resume when we connected that you did start off in rehab and drug rehab. And then I also noticed, and you mentioned it already in this interview, family. And I noticed in one of your pictures, it looks like you have one of your kids behind you.
Yeah.
What is one of the proudest things that you've done? I'm going to do a hypothetical, and today you're retiring. you're getting called in to give a final speech to your team and your residents, and your kids are there. What would you tell your kids when it's time to brag about you, Mike? When you feel comfortable and you want to tell your closest family member, I'm proud of this, what would you say?
Oh gosh, what would I say that to my kids that I was
Yeah,
most proud of?
your kids.
I would tell them in that moment I would be most proud of them for their patience and for their love in those times of me participating in a career that is so time consuming. Because everybody in this field knows that you have to sacrifice if you want to really make an impact in this field. It's a lifestyle, and it does impact, the lifestyle you do have with your family. So I think I would inadvertently bragging about myself would be to tell my children how proud of them that I am, that they understood that sacrifice, because that's a sacrifice that came full circle with me, and my father, and how how much time he devoted to his practice and to the patients that he took an oath to to make the right medical decisions for.
Thank you for sharing that. What advice would you give to your younger self? And it could be your adolescent self as what you were observing your father, or your 25-year-old self, your first day here in long-term care.
As a young man getting started out in the field, I would say learn patience. Learn patience. You get into a field, you're young, you're ambitious, you want to make an impact. But there's a certain way to do things, and sometimes when you're young, you don't really understand why those rules are there, or why it is why it's been done that way for so long. There's a time and a place to kind of shake the tree a little bit to really progress things, and then there's a time and place to to learn to step back and accept why regulations are there, why the nursing facilities operate in such a way. So I think if I were to tell myself anything, it's to learn the patience that you need in order to identify in the moment what action is needed.
I can relate to that, Mike. 2 weeks ago, I did my clinicals as a CNA, and day one, I showed up and threw up my back and ran around and was trying to pay attention to everything that wasn't right. And then on, the second day, I'm like, oh, I got to pace myself to be able to make it long run. And I was much less critical. And on day three, I was much more appreciative. So I can relate to your advice, and I'm listening, even though I'm older than you. What is a misconception, and it could be positive or negative, that you like to share about long-term care? Let's say you go out to dinner with some of your cousins you haven't seen in 10 years, and they're like, Mike, I can't believe you're still doing that. And there's something behind that word. And then you come back and you either tell them something positive or negative. What is it?
And I've encountered that, Peter. You're eating with friends or you're eating with family, and they read a bad news feed, or you get bad press about a nursing facility somewhere, especially now because of COVID. And it's easy to read a headline and place blame on a nursing facility for not supposedly offering the care that is needed. And a lot of those claims are valid. We can't write any of them off. But to fully understand the stress of the environment, what these nurses are doing day in, day out, when you're dealing with some patients that are demented, when you're dealing with some patients that are extremely obese, when you're dealing with behaviors, when you're dealing with agitation, and then to try and juggle that with the regulations that we all have to abide by, it's a recipe for a very stressful life choice and career. So mistakes happen. Everybody makes mistakes. You cannot avoid them. But what we can manage is the way what we do after a mistake occurs, or what we do to do right by patients. I think that's what sets us apart here at the Williamsport Home. I think that we do a lot of good things right, but what sets us apart is when mistakes happen, where is the focus? Are we actually making our processes better? Are we making our practices better because of it? And I think that's how we earned that reputation. So I would say to those people, just don't believe that headline. Look a little bit further, because there's always more of a backstory. There is always something else going on that you're not going to get in that media outlet.
Mike, in your role as Director of Admissions and Marketing, what's the easiest differentiator for you to be able to show to prospects, potential residents when they come to? What do you point out to that says, this is what's unique about Williamsport Home, and you can see it? I don't need to tell you.
That's a really good question, Peter. I've been doing marketing now for 10 years. And when you have a good product, you don't really need to market it, because it's the environment when people come into the facility. They see happy faces. They see the interaction with the residents. They see happy staff. The facility is clean. It's well maintained. I think it's the overall experience when someone comes into the facility that gives them that good feeling or not. And I've found over the years, in the last 6 years working here at the home, the Williamsport Home, I have to do very little talking at all. I really do. If somebody comes in and wants to see the product that we offer, it really speaks for itself. And I've marketed for multiple different products. So when you have a good product, you find that you're not trying to sell it as bad as you once were.
Before I ask you kind of my last question, I'll give you a little prep before I say thanks to our sponsor. Mike, I'm going to ask you if you have a specific mantra, quote, could even be a religious phrase, something that someone has said to you that kind of guides the way that you do work. And in lieu of maybe inspiration, my mom has always said, and I'll never forget this, is there's only one thing you can control in your life, and that's your attitude. Before we get your answer, Mike, I just want to give a small shout out to Experience Care. Experience Care is one of the oldest and most original and most advanced EHR company in long-term care. Go visit www.experience.care to see the most up-to-date point of care system in long-term care. Mike, what quote come out to your mind when I asked you that question, or what's something even maybe you say to your kids?
I would tell them and one thing I do live by here at work as well is when you have a lot of big egos in healthcare, all trying to work in one big giant pool together, I tell my kids and I tell myself constantly, choose to be happy over choosing to be right, because sometimes you can't have them both.
My mom and my dad told me that when I got married. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for sharing that, Mike. Mike, it was a pleasure having you on. I look forward to connecting with you soon, and I appreciate it. You have the great rest of your day.
You too, Peter. Thank you very much.